If you saw my last video, then you know that Insta360 just dropped their latest action camera, the Ace Pro 2. And about a month ago, DJI came out with their Osmo Action 5, and around the same time, GoPro came out with their HERO13 action camera. So with all of the latest action cameras in hand, I want to find out in today's video which action camera is the best and which one is right for you. I rigged up all three action cameras and shot some test footage, and we're going to be bringing on three separate opinions. First, we have Carlos joining us as our beginner, someone who's used a GoPro in the past to record his vacations, but that's about it. Next, we have Ethan, who's not only a model and actor, but is also a photographer who uses action cameras to create social media content to represent our enthusiast category. Then I will be representing the pro category as someone who's an avid pixel peeper. Between the three of us, I'm really curious which action cameras we pick and why. And you should play along at home as well. Let me know in the comment section down below by the end of the video on which action camera you like the best. First up, I wanted to test and compare the image quality between these three cameras. And this is gonna be a little bit different. I'm not trying to shoot all three of these cameras at the best possible image quality you can get out of them. Instead, I wanted to do auto everything, auto white balance, auto exposure. Because at the end of the day, you can push a lot of cameras to look fantastic. What I wanna know is what is the out-of-the-box experience like for somebody who wants to just pick up an action camera, take it on their vacation or their trip with them, and hit record. So stable.
That's why I got.
He needs a gimbal.
That's why I got. Literally, this is how we walk around that too. Because like, I call us the Temu squad. If you don't mind. I think it is Temu. Like they say,
yeah.
like how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so like my thing is there's been some shots where like, for instance, I think in the very first shot, I wanna say A was a little hot, and then B was probably the better option for that one. Mm-hmm. But then in like the very next shot, B was kind of like, the sharpness was just off.
Right.
Yeah.
Camera A, the one on the left, yeah, I really liked this one when I was seeing it. B is number one, but A is really close. Yeah.
Okay, close.
So, and then C would be a definite third.
C's last place for sure. I've definitely been a toss-up between A and B this whole time. I think I'm leaning towards A in first.
And personally, I found that A was a bit too overexposed in bright scenarios, whereas B tended to go for a more HDR look where nothing was really over or underexposed, while C handled exposure the best on average, but looked a little soft to me. So personally, I would have ranked it B, then C, then A. So which camera was which? Well, A was the GoPro, B was the DJI, and C was the Insta360, meaning that overall, while there wasn't a unanimous winner, the DJI had the most votes taking the win here in the general image quality section, but honestly, they all came pretty close to each other, and I think it's just down to personal preference. Next, let's look at the low light performance between these three cameras, and again, all the settings are on auto, but if the camera had a night mode or a low light mode, I went ahead and turned that on. Okay, so here's A.
Okay. B, right there, I like it. Because also in C, yeah, like that blown out, so you can't see.
I didn't even notice that, yeah.
So this one is super dark. You can't even see your face. Not being able to see your your face really gave it the third place, right? I think B is number 1 and C is number 2.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah.
C, okay. C is like clear as day, but the face is super pixelated. I'm gonna go with B. I'm gonna go with B in first place. Yeah.
What are some of these frames, dude? Like,
Exactly.
like,
that is terrifying.
Yes. Like that is, what am I looking at? That's a horrifying frame, man. For me, it was a pretty easy choice. Camera B looked the best in terms of retaining details in low light conditions, while camera C looked pretty good with better auto white balance performance, but the low light stabilization definitely caused some pretty ugly frames with the artifacting, while camera A is a mile behind when it comes to low light performance. And here are the results. Camera A was the GoPro, camera B was the Insta360, and camera C was the DJI. This one was a really fun test because it really showed the difference in technology in each of these cameras and how they approach the scene. Next, I wanted to compare and see how the 4K 120 frames per second slow motion looks between these 3 cameras.
A, it's just dark. Like, it's just too dark. So for that reason, I want to put A last. B, first place by far.
B captured a little bit better the slow motion for me.
But with C, definitely noticeable grain in the face. So it's like, do you want a dark shot where you can't really recognize the person? The reason why I'm gonna put C in second place now, thinking about it, is just because of the framing. You're able to fit more in there. So I guess it's like, I noticed the arch.
Like if you were gonna use 4K 120, you would be happier having a wider field of view.
Yes.
I don't think I would want a wider shot.
Like you wouldn't need it. You don't feel like you need it.
No.
Especially because even though it may be grainy, I can see your face, I can see your facial expressions.
Okay.
Yeah.
I personally would rank it camera B for first place because overall it's just the best looking image and I'd be happy to cut that into my videos. Camera C for second place because for me, I think that the wide angle field of view would be better for action oriented shots. And then camera A, which is honestly a perfectly good looking shot to me, but the other 2 cameras just have a few more advantages. And the results? Camera A is the Insta360, camera B is the DJI, and camera C is the GoPro. Next up, let's talk about stabilization. To test this, I set all of the cameras to their highest level of stabilization they offer, and the results were interesting because they're all action cameras, so they should all be really good at this.
All of these look really, really similar. Probably the toughest one that you've shown me yet. I would think I would go C as the first one, maybe B as the second one, A as the third.
I would say this is the smoothest, but realistically, this is a tough one. If it comes to this just off stabilization, I would stay C.
I think we all ended up agreeing with the same answers. I also felt like camera C performed the best, camera B was the second choice, and camera A was the third choice. So which camera was which? Camera A is the Insta360, camera B is the DJI, and camera C is the GoPro. Let's be honest, All three of these did really, really well. I don't think any of these results would disappoint you if you took this camera to shoot a bunch of action-oriented stuff like skiing, surfing, or mountain biking. I think the GoPro just looked the most floaty, while the DJI was a tiny bit less floaty, and the Insta360 just had a few rubber banding moments where it corrected its stabilization mid-movement, giving us a little bit of a screen jerk. Personally, I would be happy with the results of any of these, but if there had to be a winner, I think the votes are in, and the GoPro took the W on this one. Let's come back to image quality real quick. This time we're doing it slightly differently. We're going to instead lock down the cameras on a tripod, set them all to their respective log picture profile to get the flattest image possible, set the cameras to the lowest sharpness possible, and then color correct them afterwards with the LUT that each company provides on their website, and then add sharpness back into the shots in post to see which camera gives us the best looking image. Now, I did get the guys' reaction to this, but I realized I had actually originally edited the clips wrong, and long story short, I didn't think it was fair, so no point in scoring for this one. But I still wanted to show you guys for you to decide on your own. So, which camera did you like best? Camera A is the Insta360, camera B is the GoPro, and camera C is the DJI. This one was interesting to me because initially I kind of just really liked the image coming out of both the DJI Osmo Action 5 and the Ace Pro 2. That kind of made sense. They both have the largest sensors, both at 1/1.3 inch, and the DJI Osmo Action 5 has 10-bit color depth. That is until I looked really closely in Pixel Peep. If you look closely at the DJI Osmo Action 5 footage, and I mean 800% zoom, I noticed that there's actually a decent amount of color noise, because when you compare it to the GoPro Hero 13, there's significantly less digital noise. And then, if you look at the Ace Pro 2, there's just something funky going on. Every 15 frames, it kind of just scrambles for 2 to 3 frames. But let's also keep things in context that all three of these frames actually look really stellar when viewing them at a regular scale, and if we're accounting for the fact that there's going to be video compression anyways when delivering on social media. It's very close. What do you guys think? All right, now let's do a quick comparison of the audio quality of the internal microphones on each of these cameras. All right, now let's do a little bit of an audio comparison between all of the internal microphones in these cameras. How does it sound when I go really loud and I'm talking at a good volume, and then what if I bring it down really quietly? How does that audio sound? All right, now let's do a little bit of an audio comparison between all of the internal microphones in these cameras. How does it sound when I go really loud and I'm talking at a good volume, and then what if I bring it down really quietly? How does that audio sound? All right, now let's do a little bit of an audio comparison between all of the internal microphones in these cameras. How does it sound when I go really loud and I'm talking at a good volume, and then what if I bring it down really quietly? How does that audio sound? I think the DJI Osmo Action 5 and the Insta360 Ace Pro 2 both sounded pretty good and definitely usable, while the GoPros sounded significantly less usable. All right, moving on. Next up is battery life, and I think this is a pretty important factor when it comes to action cameras. So to test this, I started recording at 4K 30 frames per second with a fully charged battery in each of the cameras and just let them roll until they each died. And here are the results I got. The DJI Osmo Action 5 led the pack at 2 hours and 45 minutes of runtime. The Insta360 Ace Pro 2 followed behind in second place at 1 hour and 58 minutes. And finally, with the GoPro Hero 13 performing the worst at 1 hour and 37 minutes. With these results, I asked for Ethan's opinion on whether or not this would sway him one way or the other.
It makes me lean more towards it, because if I'm riding during the daytime a lot, then once again, only having to swap my battery 2 hours and 45 minutes, that's insane. That's crazy. That's a whole road trip. That's almost from Tampa to Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah. With all of that out of the way, the last thing I wanted to compare was price. The Insta360 Ace Pro 2 comes in as the most expensive option at $399, but they also have an option of getting a 2-battery bundle for just $419. The DJI Osmo Action 5 comes in at $349, and the GoPro Hero 13 Black is already on sale, reduced from $399 down to $349, which I actually find to be pretty funny because the GoPro Hero 13 came out less than 2 months ago, and obviously I think they brought the price down to be more competitive against DJI and Insta360, but it's wild to me that they dropped it already by $50 and it's only been out for 2 months. So which action camera should you buy? I'm really torn between two recommendations, the Insta360 Ace Pro 2 or the DJI Osmo Action 5. The Insta360 Ace Pro 2 delivers good looking footage during daytime, during well-lit scenes, but obviously once you take it into those low light scenarios where you're shooting indoors with not a lot of lighting, it really does shine. It performs exceptionally well at maintaining details, at still keeping things stabilized, and it's just nice. Right out of the box, it's good looking footage. But then you compare that to the DJI Osmo Action 5, which delivers really good footage during daytime. In those really contrasty scenes, like during harsh sunlight, it really does a great job on making sure that those shadow details aren't lost and making sure that the highlights aren't blown out. So on average, out of the box, you're just getting a more pleasing looking image. I think the easiest thing to say is that the GoPro Hero 13 in 2024, it's really just not the most versatile option. Yes, it has some really specific use cases that it's gonna be fantastic in. Maybe if you really need that stabilization and that really stood out to you, or maybe you really want that 400 FPS slow motion, but overall, it's got a smaller sensor and it just is a little bit underwhelming when you compare it to the other two options. So for my 2024 Action Camera of the Year pick, it's gonna be split. If you know you're gonna be shooting a lot during daytime in harsh lighting conditions and not much in low light scenarios, go with the Osmo Action 5 because the way it handles highlights and shadows in scenes is personally something I think looks really good. And add on top of the fact that it has the longest battery life, I think it just makes it a pretty easy choice. But if you even shoot 20 to 25% of your shots consistently in low light scenarios, I would pick up the Ace Pro 2 just so you don't have to deal with the headache of bad looking low light footage. All right, that's it for this one. Let me know in the comment section down below on which of the three cameras you thought looked the best. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Peace.